All right, everybody, welcome to the Gilder Spotlight podcast. Today we have an exciting guest. She is fellow Gilder member Aya Kikimova. She's currently the founder and CEO of Leap Engine, a marketing agency. But Aya, if you can give our listeners a quick background of yourself, a quick introduction, that'd be fantastic.
Sure. My name is Aya. I started Leap Engine about 2 years ago, and Leap Engine is based out of New Jersey from my home with a completely remote team of digital marketers. Leap Engine is a digital marketing agency specializing in bringing affordable, cutting edge digital marketing solutions from services to tools to small businesses and startups.
Very cool, Aya. Thanks for that introduction. And kind of just to start from the beginning, maybe in your adolescence, did you always want to become a founder and an entrepreneur?
I did. I have dreamt of running my own business since I was a kid. Actually, I have an entrepreneurial upbringing. My family was a family of entrepreneurs. Actually, grew up in Kazakhstan, which at the time was a socialist country. Owning a business was not something that you could do. And then in 1991, when the country broke apart at the USSR, that was the birth of sort of capitalism. And that's where my mom took over. And she had kind of import-export business. And my grandma then had little side gigs. She like had 3 different gigs, and eventually they opened like a little deli shop. So that sort of inspired me to run a business. And then my mom transitioned into real estate. And since I was about 10 years old, I was actually helping her. And because I'm the only English speaking person, I have also managed some of the real estate from abroad, because sometimes the tenants were English speaking, tourists. So I am quite familiar with that side of entrepreneurship. But essentially, yes, it was always my dream. It only happened recently because it took me about 18 years to get my green card. And
Wow.
that was the only way I could get and start my company. I suppose I could have done the entrepreneurship visa, but I did not know about it at the time.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. It sounds like it's amazing that you come from a family of entrepreneurs, import exports, other businesses like that. I had no idea that you're from Kazakhstan, actually. By the look of your name, I'm half Japanese. Aya actually looks like a very Japanese name. So I actually thought you could have been maybe Japanese. I had no idea. So is your whole entire family is from Kazakhstan?
Yes, I'm the only one in the US. My entire family is from Kazakhstan. Aya is actually short for Aigurim, but Aya is easier to pronounce.
I see. Okay. My cousin was adopted from Kazakhstan in the mid 90s. And so yeah.
Wow.
So one of the closest people I am to is she's from Kazakhstan. But yeah, it's a very, very interesting country. And I actually want to ask just what was it like growing up? I guess technically it was the USSR. You said
Mhm.
that the 90s, its revolution happened and Kazakhstan became its own independent entity. But what was it like growing up there?
Oh man, it was interesting. I don't remember the USSR part, but from stories, it was a time of kind of like there was no poverty because everybody was on an equal footing. Like being unemployed was not legal. They would give you a job and will assign you a job, and everybody had housing because you would be assigned an apartment, and you had like an allotment of food and groceries per week. So every family was equal. And the salaries were even equal for a person who would be sweeping the streets and a CEO of a company, like a large manufacturing. So people were more on an equal footing, but also it didn't allow for much opportunity outside of that. So what I remember is that I guess we stood in line and we could only get one loaf of bread because that was the allotment for the week. And we didn't have a lot of sugar, which is why everybody was probably skinny back then. But it was, yeah, it was interesting. And then in the 90s, I think the opportunity came mostly from the fact that for a few months there was no government and people had to figure it out. There was no currency. And so barter became kind of like natural. And then people were like, well, where are we going to get the food? So people kind of naturally fell into entrepreneurship because somebody had to keep things going, especially for things like food. So my mom was importing baked goods and especially flour. So flour was used in bakeries to make sure that people could have some bread. Yeah.
Couldn't even yeah, it's hard to comprehend that kind of lifestyle as far as, a janitor to a CEO of a company having been kind of on the even, an even playing field as far as, their salary. Do you think, and I'm sure there's probably some science behind it, but did that stunt innovation? Did that, make people not as motivated to work just because everyone was kind of on the even playing field? There's no motives or incentives to move up the ladder as far as in your career?
I guess so, but I mean, there
Maybe I
were
should
some other benefits, like the CEOs had their own private drivers and cars that were government assigned, and they could travel a lot more. But I guess I don't remember. I was a child. I remember like my father went to a revolution or like a demonstration to protest the Soviet Union, and that's how the countries broke off. But yeah, it did stunt innovation, I think, a little bit, but also I could not be an expert in that whole conversation. I just know that my family kind of fell into entrepreneurship because they had to. And because many people did, because somebody had to keep the wheels turning, so that people didn't starve and normal operations would continue. So that's how I guess it happened.
And so I'm assuming, back, in the, I guess, early 90s, mid 90s, when your family started jumping into entrepreneurship and everyone and not everyone, but a lot of folks in Kazakhstan to, so to speak, keep the wheels moving, how did they develop a background or understanding on how to build and operate a business to become an entrepreneur?
I mean, you just learn from doing. I think it's kind of like you just have to sink or swim. And it was not an option to fail because if you did fail, then lots of people would go hungry. So people just continued doing and figuring things out on the spot. And I think that's very familiar to me because like 3, 4 years ago, I think I left Microsoft, which was obviously highly coveted job, very comfortable, lots of benefits, six-figure income. But I thought if I don't do this now, I will never do this. And I have to try. I can always go back to corporate if I fail. So I had to figure things out. It was really difficult because you are one person and you have to learn accounting and operations and sales and marketing, which I already knew. Ironically, we don't do any marketing for ourselves, but you just have to put all those hats on. And I think that's how people sort of survived. You kind of had to do it.
Yeah, becoming an entrepreneur, you have to wear 50 different hats and be a jack of all trades. So yeah, going back to the start of your career, at what age did you move or I guess immigrant to the United States? And what was that process like?
So at the age of 16, or I guess at the age of 15, I had the opportunity to do an exchange program for which I applied. So I came to the US when I was 16 for an exchange program. And I was in Ohio. I ended up, you don't get to choose where you are, you just kind of are matched to your family. To your host family in what you're looking for. And I was with my host family in Ohio, and it was such an incredible experience. I loved the freedom of speech, the fun, the people were so kind and so accepting and warm. And it was just a completely different culture, and I fell in love. So I thought, okay, when I go back to Kazakhstan to graduate, to finish my high school, I want to apply again to the US to come back because prior to that, every summer I would go to England for summer school, and that was really my path. We were building a runway for me to attend a school in England, but I decided to come back to Ohio to go to college. So that was my process.
Very cool. And what did you study at university and why?
I studied economics and minored in computer science. And I thought that economics was something that I guess my family majored in, and there was not many options. It's not like they had finance or anything. The school I went to was a private liberal arts school, so they didn't have a lot of options. Economics was closest to business that I could kind of find. And computer science, ironically, I did not know that it was all about coding. Initially, I thought it was just to learn computers because I did not even know how to use computers at the time. We didn't have computers in Kazakhstan, so I just learned to type. And with that, I learned to code. So that was an interesting experience. And that's why I didn't major in it, because it was really hard and it was not for me. But I was okay. I learned some C++.
Wow. No, that's a fantastic foundation. C++, HTML. I'm not a huge computer science expert, obviously, but I'm sure that it probably give you a good foundation on how to use a computer as well, coming from a background of not using computers growing up. But very cool. And so you you know you graduate university, and did you always want to do marketing? I noticed on your LinkedIn you started kind of in marketing, or was that something that just fits you and that you found that you're really good at while you're attending university or helping out your parents and their businesses?
Yes, helping my parents in their businesses, I was very good at marketing and also kind of in operations. So I also went to MBA program in New York at Zicklin
Very good
School of
stuff.
Business. And that's where I tried different classes. And I was initially going to major in finance, which I did. I have like a finance degree, but I also took some marketing classes and they just made sense to me. And it was really fun and easy and very creative, and the culture was different. I did not want to wear suit, which is the main reason I did not go into finance actually. And so in marketing you had the option of dress up kind of casual. So it's funny how that kind of directed my choice. And I got an internship at a large agency at Group M. And then I got a job at another company and just kind of flowed from there. Just marketing kind of settled in. But I did love the culture. I did love the creative aspect and also the fact that it's just common sense. It's like a business thing rather than finance was highly mathematical. I mean, it was very interesting, but I also thought that that was just not my thing. I didn't feel like I fit in.
100%. I think marketing uses a lot more creativity rather than the analytical side, and I think a lot of folks either have that creative side rather than the analytical side. So it just depends on what your strengths are, but totally makes sense. And yeah, it sounds like your career and even just your life in general, moving to the States, getting a green card, having opportunities here, it all serendipitously kind of worked and flowed into, where you are now. But you ended up working at Microsoft, the biggest company in the world right now. How did you land on that position, and what did you learn while you're at Microsoft?
They found me. That was like the only company in my career that found me through LinkedIn. And then they interviewed, and then it happened very quickly. They sent me like a phone interview, then I went into in-person interview, and then it was another in-person like 5-hour interview all day. And then at the end of the day, same day, I was told yes, like I will get an offer called with an official offer, and then the whole process started. The slowest part was actually getting like the visa application and all of that, because I had to transfer my work visa at the time to Microsoft. I was there about 6.5 years, and it was an incredible experience because you work alongside some of the smartest people on this planet because Microsoft has a very high selection process. I think like less than 1% of people get in. And it was incredible. I mean, I made some really good friends. It's very fast paced at the same time as very bureaucratic, as you can imagine any big corporation can be. But I think the department that we were at, which was a search engine that is a competitor of Google, And we were in the advertising sales department of that. It was very much like a startup vibe. And I had clients and it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot. They invest a lot in training. So I learned the sales side of it very well as a lot of operational innovation processes and kind of peeked behind the hood. Lots of businesses and lots of people kind of end up being in just one area in between. But I was on the client side, I was on the vendor side, which, Microsoft is a vendor. And I was also at the agency, and now I run my own agency. So yeah, it was a very interesting experience. Definitely recommend. There's people who like once you get into one of those big companies, very rarely you leave. Usually people are lifers, but I guess like I just had that entrepreneurial bug that I had to try
Makes
before
sense.
before I'm 40. Otherwise I won't.
Well, kind of two questions stem from that. One is, really difficult opportunity to get. You said 1% acceptance as far as people that apply, people that get into Microsoft. And then also you had visa thing. So why do you think Microsoft, just what made you stand out over kind of other candidates?
I think I just had lots of experience at the time, exactly what they needed. Somebody who knew search marketing very well, and came from agency world, as well as maybe the enthusiasm. I don't know, I was very enthusiastic and excited about the position. And I, you know, just like the passion for marketing and understanding. I guess they test for different things. And somebody who has interviewed people for Microsoft, I now know what they're looking for. But it's just it's like a science almost. They have it down.
What are they looking for?
I
Curious.
mean, it depends. I think, generally one person will interview for culture, the other person will interview for skill, and there's like a gradation. It's very scientific. I mean, and there has to be a consensus among all interviewers, and then the final call will be also by somebody senior, like a VP, who will be the last person to interview.
And then another question that kind of stems from this conversation too is, you have a stable job at the biggest company in the world, Microsoft. It's very bougie, it's flashy, you're making six figures. Why would you choose to leave a stable job at the best company in the world to a more risky path of being an entrepreneur?
That's a good question. It's an entrepreneurial bug, right? It's like, why would you do that? I just thought it's either now or never. I literally waited to get my green card, like 15, 16 years. And every time I was like, I want to do something on my own. I want to do startup. Even while at Microsoft, I was trying like other side projects. I was collaborating with Microsoft for startups, and I was sort of traveling on their behalf to Forbes 30 under 30. So I was like in that startup kind of community already. And it was very exciting for me. So I thought, why I actually had to give up quite a chunk of stocks that have not yet vested. You know, it's like you live one life and it's now or never, right? So that was like my thought process. I have to try. I can always go back if I really wanted to, or another corporate job, whichever, but I have to try building my own. Sorry, my battery is about to die. I need to replug in. Do you mind?
Yeah, I could pause this. Let me pause it right.
Yeah.
Wi-Fi things too, ever since being down in Latvia. But anyway, so you were saying, you might as well go after it. What were your, initial thoughts coming from that stable environment to going into kind of the trenches of being a founder? Were you nervous? Were you scared? Were you confident and motivated? What were your thoughts?
I was very scared. In fact, I just like left and I did not know what I was going to start, what I was going to do, what was that entrepreneurial venture is going to be for a whole year and a half, even because I thought I wanted to follow my passion. I thought, oh, maybe I want to be working with kids and I want to be in daycare environment. I even did like a test drive being a daycare teacher at a local school. And I was like, oh, let me try it. And then I thought maybe I will open my own daycare. So I spoke with a daycare owner and maybe, we can do this together because she was kind of also interested in having an operational manager or a director, but she wanted to have me start slower. But then after working there for a day and then seeing that the pay would be like $10 an hour or something, I was like, okay, I have, at the time I also had my own baby, like infant too. Um, and I thought, oh my God, I don't know if that can be something I can do right now because my husband is also free, like, on his own. He also left corporate. So we were both in this kind of still unsure where the income's going to come from. And but he knew like he was working on his production company, but it took a while to start making money. So I'm like, okay, we have to pay mortgage. So I don't know $10 an hour is going to do it. Um, Unfortunately, that's the reality, even though I really loved working with kids. So I also like just had local businesses come to me because everybody knew I was like a digital marketer. They're like, well, can you help us? Can you do this? So I kind of was doing it on the side. And eventually I thought when my daughter was 6 months old, I thought this can be a business because people are coming to me. I'm not even like doing anything to advertise or market. So then I started Leap Engine and then I said, okay, like refer more people to me. Now I'm like officially a business. And then all of a sudden it was just within the month, I had like at least five new clients, and they just kept coming and it was growing through referrals exclusively. So I thought, okay, like this is a cool business. And then, but of course, I did not want it to be just kind of a traditional marketing agencies. So we are now developing a tool to scale so that it's not going to be like just service based. It's also going to allow people to have a cheaper version of us, but giving them a lot more quality in terms of what they can achieve with marketing.
And just in your, it sounds like everything really, the leads started coming in, referrals were happening. What was your biggest surprise in this whole process of starting Leap Engine?
The biggest surprise, it was working with small businesses is very different than working with multinationals because my clients at Microsoft were like Procter and Gamble and Macy's and Estee Lauder companies and all of these big, sometimes like national and multinational companies, and they had millions of dollars in budget. And now I had clients that came to me and they said, we only have $1,000 to spend this month. And I said, okay, I spend that usually with these multinationals in like 5 minutes of ads. But for these clients, it's very important to make every dollar count. And as a business owner, I feel responsible for their money being spent. And I want to make sure that it is maximized so they get as much ROI as possible. They see the results. And so that's how it was a big shift. And I had to make that work, which it did because, obviously they wouldn't refer clients if they didn't see results, and they wouldn't have stayed with me this entire time, 2 years plus, if they did not like believe and trust me. So, but that was the biggest shift. I feel like I worked overtime. I worked like at night and trying to figure out how to make this as efficient as possible because it's hard to make $1 into 10 out of $1,000.
I 100% agree. And just another thing, like, why did all these referrals happen right when you started your business? What made you different than the other ad agencies?
So I was not an ad agency at the time. I was just, in the community And everybody was asking, so what do you do? And I said, like, I'm a digital marketer. And they're like, oh, well, actually, I'm looking for some help with my ads. Can you help me? And I said, oh, yeah, of course, I'll do that. And they were like, oh, well, how much would you charge us? Like, oh, $500, it's fine. And I just, just did it as a favor and something to do on the side while I was looking for something more serious to do, like as in my permanent project. And that's how it all started. And then they said, oh, my friend is also, they have like this haircut, like, the hair styling salon. They're also looking for a like person for social media person. And then there's like, oh, I have the cleaning business. I need some, can you help me? So and so told me about you. And I was kind of like getting random texts and stuff like that. So that's how it all started. I think because I was quite like cheap, and also good quality, and people trust their recommendations. So they just referred me that way. But now I think we have turned like into more of an agency like model, which is, a lot different than when I started as like quote unquote freelancer.
And yeah, and do you remember getting your first customer as a, I guess, business owner or freelancer? And what were your feelings after getting your first customer?
I was really excited. I really wanted to impress them, and I I think I did, and I was very nervous at first because this was like my first ever my personal client. But my experience with working with clients for over 14 years, I mean, I was natural, like I knew how to have these conversations, what to present and how to show them the results and also recommendations and everything. So that came in handy, obviously. I just kind of naturally extended my skill set into these small businesses. The other positive impact of this transition has been the impact on the businesses themselves and the owners. So, for example, there is a client of mine who has started a business, and that business was their key to their family's kind of financial independence, to paying off like mortgages, and also to sending their kids to college. Also, most importantly, it was their path to a green card because they applied for a entrepreneurship visa, which I did not know existed, but that visa is dependent on the success of the business and making it like a real business. So they have been trying a few other agencies and freelancers for a couple of years before meeting me. And then after they met me, within like literally the first few months, they started seeing like a 10x return, which was really great. And then they started adding more budget. And so they went from like spending 1,000 a month to now spending 20,000 a month because it's working, and they are able to open a second location. And most importantly, they were able to get the family green card. They were able to go and pay for their kids' education and buy another house so that they could, pay off this house. So it was like that personal impact to those business owners was very different to the impact I would make, let's say, for Macy's. It was like great for corporate shareholders, but it was not like that personal.
Yeah, no, it's amazing that you're directly impacting, those people's lives, helping them get a green card, helping them get opportunity, make more money. That's fantastic. A question that came to my mind while you're explaining this to me is there a certain formula for marketing and advertising is it industry agnostic, or do you look at every single business owner that you work with? Do you do a lot of research about their industry and then make the ads based off that, or is there a secret formula that is industry agnostic for marketing and advertisements?
It is unique for every business. So every business has their own, how do you say it? Like they're basically benchmarks, right? Industry benchmarks. However, the overall marketing user journey is the same because psychology is the same, because people are the same, humans are the same. The way that they buy, the buying purchase is similar across the board. It just may differ in terms of the timeline. For some, it's a 90-day purchase path, right? Conversion path to conversion. Or for some people, it's the same day, like for e-commerce businesses. It's just a matter of like how far, how wide, or how short it is. But yeah, every business has their own unique customization. We have a kind of methodology that I call GPS. It stands for growth, profit, sales. And in the discovery period for 15 minutes of our first initial call, I ask them 10 or so questions, and they're all about the numbers. It's no fluff. It's about, okay, what's your profit margins? How many sales you're doing? What's your stickiness? What is the lifetime value? How much are you spending right now on your marketing? So like a few of those questions, and we plug them into this calculator. And then from the calculator, we can tell, okay, they are either their stickiness is bad, or their conversion rate is bad, or their close rate is bad, or their cost per acquisition is impossible because their lifetime value is not good enough. So depending on their numbers, it will tell us where the issues are. And sometimes we tell them, hey, like, you're not a good candidate for digital marketing. You need to go back, reassess your profit margins. You need to go back, or you can reassess your lifetime values so that when you do spend to acquire a lead or a customer, you can justify that spend because you have a high value coming from that customer. So we usually tell them, like, consider some other upsell strategies, cross-sell strategies, something else, and then come back to us when you're ready. So
And
we have that kind of model, but it's basically, it's a yes, they all follow that same kind of like formula, but at the same time, once you look at those formulas, you're like, okay, this doesn't make sense, this doesn't make sense, go fix it and then come back. Or this makes sense, you're a good candidate, here's what we can do for you.
and another thing, is there an ideal, or what's the ideal ratio for customer acquisition cost over lifetime value for a good business?
Customer acquisition cost. So I don't think it's like, we don't have a ratio. That's not what we are calculating. We're basically looking at if the customer acquisition cost is below $5, that's not viable, because customer acquisition cost, there's something's wrong. And if their profit margins, that basically means that their profit margins are low or their close rate is not good. So whenever they come leads, they don't turn into customers, or something's wrong with the stickiness, which means that their offer is not very good, or their quality of whatever they're providing is not good. So normally we just like plug in these numbers, and then we'll look at that cost CPA. And then if CPA is like comparable to the industry threshold or industry standards, then it's okay. And also like $5, I'm
Meaning
just
cost per
saying,
acquisition. It's cost per
yeah,
acquisition.
cost per acquisition. So every industry will have their own, because, for example, we have a financial services company, and their cost per acquisition normally is like 250 to 1,000, right? So that's good. And then we have a local spa or like a beauty spa, and their cost per acquisition is like $30 to $40. So it depends on the industry. That's where the industry comes in. But really, based on the industry, we know where your close rate should be, what your profit margins should be, what your lifetime value should be. And if some of those areas are not right, then your whole business model is not right. Marketing cannot fix that. Like, there is no point in marketing until you have a solid, like, business numbers that make your business healthy, that you can actually grow and scale.
Makes total sense. And Aya, what kind of folks, what kind of founders do you like working with?
I like to work with founders who are honest and respectful, and who like just understand the value of marketing, and then the marketing is fuel for their business, like for their sales. Without it, it's hardly any sales can happen. But what I discovered, my best clients are actually women. And maybe I don't know, I don't generally target women, but I feel because I'm a woman, that's natural kind of gravitational force, I suppose. But yeah, like a lot of our clients are women-based owners with specific locations. But as far as founders, I think firstly we can help people whose numbers look good in terms of like their businesses, but also who are willing to invest and understand that that takes time and investment, and then there's no magic bullet. The only magic bullet that there is like if somebody's promising that, it's definitely a waste of time.
I'm assuming there's probably not many guarantees in the marketing and ad industry, right? It's impossible to guarantee anything. And then two more questions. What was the biggest challenge when becoming an entrepreneur, starting your own business? Besides wearing many different hats, obviously that's a big challenge. But what would you say, besides that piece, what was the biggest challenge becoming an entrepreneur?
The biggest challenge was the financial piece, was leaving behind the six-figure income and the benefits, like the healthcare, because when you are on your own, there is no structure and there is no guaranteed income. And so it's kind of settling into that uncertainty and being comfortable and finding comfort in knowing that you don't know what's going to happen, and that's okay. But you're going to be okay no matter what. So that was the biggest one because I knew I wanted to leave. So I saved some money to float. And I said, if I don't work for 2 years, this is good money I can burn. Like, fine. But not everybody has that kind of luxury. Some people lose jobs and then they don't have those savings. So, but for me, like that was still very uncomfortable because I felt like I was just burning cash without bringing in any money. But I don't regret it. I think that was a good learning experience. And for me, it was overcoming the fear of failure into failing comfortably. Like, I'm okay to fail. Like, I'm like, okay, whatever happens with Leap Engine, I'm gonna be okay. And I think that is like something that corporate people, it's for them hard because I was in that mindset, but now I'm like, I'll start something else. It doesn't matter. It's gonna be fine.
Yeah, corporate, it's so easy to, I don't want to just say skate by, but it's very easy to kind of just, skate by, go with the flow. You're getting money, you're doing your, I don't want to say the basics, but a lot of people in corporate environments kind of just do the bare minimum, get done and go along with their day. And being a founder and entrepreneur, it's really like I got to put food on my table. I got to make sure that I'm not my savings aren't draining. I got to make sure that I'm plugging up that hole and we're finding solutions for people. So it takes it's a noble path. It takes a lot of grit, determination, and it's a scary path, but it's a very rewarding path. And then one other thing, what would you tell yourself 6 years ago, or whenever you made that leap in entrepreneurship, what would you tell Aya 6 or 7 years ago?
Keep doing, keep going. I know you're afraid, but do it anyway.
And then any word of advice or wisdom that you'd like to share to our community?
I think the word of wisdom would be use your common sense. I know that there are a lot of, and I am a mentor to a couple of startups too, and I feel like there is this, there's all these amazing books, like Lean Startup and all of that, and every book has their own value. At the end of the day, follow common sense. Not every formula is working. Like there's people trying to iterate and launch and see and get feedback. But if you already know your product is not good, there's no point in going to that iteration. Make it better first to test whether that, if you already know the answer, why are you putting it out there? That's basically my advice. Just follow your common sense. Like, does it make sense?
Awesome, Aya. Well, really appreciate you for being a fantastic guest on the Killer Spotlight podcast. We'll put Leap Engine information in the show notes. People, if they want to get in touch with you, talk to you about marketing, advertisements, we'll put your info down there. But again, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for the time, Aya.
Thank you so much, Taiga. It's fun.